Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to be going through the basics of the installation estimating and PDF takeoff. So this will be a bit of a guided walkthrough of how to get from start to finish all the way through the system. We will be doing a couple of questions and everything, so please feel free to submit them through at any point through the Zoom's question and answer box, and we'll be going through those all the way at the end. Like I said, you can submit these at any time, but we will just be going through them at the end of today's session. So let's get started. Let me get my screen all shared for you all. There we go. Okay, so I am doing this on the cloud version of the platform. If you do have this locally installed in comparison to having it on the cloud, nearly 95% of the features is going to be exactly the same for the cloud-based system as well as it would be for the locally installed. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off on the estimating platform. So I've actually already got that one already open today. So here we are, we're already in. And well, let's get started with it all. Okay, so one of the first things that you will all want to be doing is obviously going in and creating a job and starting from there. But just before we get a little bit into that, I'm just going to come up here to the top right and talk about this tools section that's up here. So if you go into tools and then we go into components/material file, what we're effectively looking at back here is your entire database. Okay, so what you have here in this first component details tab is these are all of your individual materials. These are all organized into various different bands that will organize those material ranges for you. So as you can see, I've got my bands, I've then got coverings, matting, metal, section, and we can go down, we can click on any of these and view any of those materials which are in here. Now, once you're actually viewing any of those materials, what you are able to do is just press the amend details button on that specific material, and you can see the description that we have given it. Please feel free to overwrite the description and change it if it's not exactly how you would like it to be displayed. This is also where you can see things like how it's actually working out the calculation method. So my particular material that we're looking at here, the little bit of ice over, is calculated based off of a meter, and the site calculation is also done per meter and based off of the pipe's outer diameter. And then over here on the right, if I did want to incorporate workshop time, we can once again choose the specific option and input those times in. Now, if you want to look into a bit more detail of that, you've got your four buttons down here. Sorry, so you've got your various purchase types that's going to help us out on the material reports later on. You've got the material prices that have actually been inputted, as well as the site installation time and the shop installation time. So let's start off by looking at the purchase types. So the purchase types of this is this item is bought in a meter. So in this particular instance, number of meters per meter would be 1. However, if this was done on a roll, you might be able to say that there is 20 meters to a roll, as an example. So then if we just press exit out of there and just give it a second, we can then go into the material prices. There we are, it's just having a little think just for a second. There we go, we're back at it. So let's bring up the material prices now. Here we go. So in this, I've got my various different pipe sizes, and then I have my various different thicknesses. So I've got it 20, 25, all the way up to 60. And as you can see, we then just input the relevant prices against the size ranges that you would need. Some are set up like this. Some more might just be what is the cost per square meter, depending on how it's all set up. But all of these sort of settings, this is all dictated by the actual cost calculation bit that we see over there on the left-hand side. Right, so now what I can do is just come down here to the bottom, just press exit, and we can come out of there, and then I can view the site labor option in here as well. So we'll just give it a second just to load that one up as well. Okay, and here we are. Now we can see that this is actually done off of specific size ranges, okay? And those size ranges are something that we can customize a little bit for you. So you can always reach out and ask us about that on the support line. And then over here, I have my install time, which is then set up per meter, once again, dictated by the site calculation method. Now we all work in decimal hours, so hopefully you're all familiar with decimal hours, but just in case you aren't, these are the times. So if you took these and basically plugged that into your calculator, times it by 60, and it would give you that back in minutes. Same thing if you want to convert minutes back into decimals, just input on a calculator what it is as minutes, and then divide it by 60, and that will give you your answer. But as a rule of thumb, 1 is an hour, 0.5 is half hour, and 0.25 is 15 minutes, to give you that sort of base understanding of what we're at least looking at here. And then it's going to be a very similar table if I had set up the various shop labels as well. Okay, so this is how you can look at all of your particular materials. Now, with the materials, they can be built up either directly with your net rate, or we can actually build it up with the various list price and discounts that you get from your suppliers, such as, say, Encon as an example. So if we have actually inputted all of these at list price for you, and then you want to see what discount percentages you're getting off of this particular range, so V1 section, we can come here into the discount codes, okay, which are going to correspond with our bands. So you see here, you've got A, B, C, and obviously that goes all the way down, which just corresponds with these band references that you see over here on the left-hand side of that drop down. So in here, we can then see I have various different discounts off of particular ranges of items. And then what you might actually find is some of the material items have actually been inputted in as a net rate for you automatically, rather than it being trade price less the discount. If that is the case, we do usually write at this stage at the end of it, and it will just say sort of net on it, just like that for you, just so it's very easily distinguishable that that is built up off of a net rate, and it's not a case of having a missing discount. If you do want to add any discounts, simply just click on the relevant box in band 1 and then input your discount percentage. But please do make sure you include it with the minus figure as well, okay? So as example, if I got a base 90%, it would be minus 90 like that. If you do just input it in as 90% as basically as a positive, it will uplift your prices by 90%, and it's not realistically going to highlight that to you anywhere other than on this screen, okay? If you prefer us to manage all of this for you, that's absolutely fine. You just have to tell us when your price has gone up, or when your discount percentages have changes, and then we can apply the relevant updates for you, okay? So that's all there. Now, the additional band options are here just in case you get additional discounts on top. So up here, we have an 82% discount. If I was then to receive another 10% off of those products, I could then apply the additional 10% discount there. So it'll take off the base 82% first, and then take off the additional 10%. And then you have got band 3 and 4 there, which will then once again just work like stepping stones for you. So that's all there if you ever did want to come here and evaluate any of this. But basically, what we do for you when you're actually then going live into the system is we gather all of these materials and we group them together into what we refer to as our specification file. Okay, so up here at the top, we've got you'll probably find that we've made you a load of examples, and you may, for some of the more experienced users, you may have actually come on and sort of made up your own bespoke versions of these. Okay, so we'll just look at the top one, H&V tape and ID. So I can press amend specification, and then we'll see the material breakdown that builds up that spec, okay? So you build up the spec, imagining basically, if it's pipework, just imagine the description is the pipework, and then we're going to apply the insulation around it, and then we're going to put the tape, and then we're going to put the identabands on that afterwards. So that's how you build it up. So if you ever need to do double layers of insulation or anything like that, you would put in your base insulation and then things like your tape or lacing wire or whatever the materials may be, and then you would then input your other set of insulation and then build it all out again. Okay, now this, like I said, these are the base ones that have already been built up into the system. So you are more than welcome to make any adjustments to these. What we would actually recommend for you to do, rather than just adjusting these, we would always recommend that you copy it and then make the adjustments in the copied version, just so you have more specs already built up on your software, which is definitely going to make it easier when you're doing new jobs. Rather than having to create everything from scratch each time, you'll already have the information to hand, or at least the list of materials that you would need. When you press the next screen after this point, oh, actually, sorry, just before I go into that, let me just show you how to actually swap any of your materials out before I get too carried away with myself. Let's say as a basic example, that's not the tape I want. I want to change that up to a different type of tape. So up here along the top, you have your various different material groups or material bands that we were just looking at previously. But if you're not too fond of looking at it in that sort of method, you can up here just change it to display all materials. So rather than just displaying the relevant materials that's inside the specific band that you've selected, you can just view them all, and then you can actually just search using the filter box down here at the bottom. So as an example, I want to look up what tapes are already in the system. So up there, we've got the 50mm BCO foil tape, and here I could then swap that out to the 75mm. So what I'm going to do then is just highlight that there. I'm going to press the backspace, which has now cleared that out. I'm then going to choose that I want the 75, and then just give it a double click there to say, can you place it here? And that has now swapped that out on my system from 50mm tape to 75mm tape. And that's as easy as it is to actually swap over any of your materials in here. So after you've done that and you built it all up to how you would need to, simply just press the next screen button. Now, this is asking you for your default thicknesses of basically of the insulation. So when do you want to change from having 20 mil thick insulation up to 25 mil thick insulation, as an example? So here, what's already been set up as a standard is that basically from 108 down, all of that will be installed based off of 25 mil thickness insulation. And then down here further at the bottom, it actually doesn't have anything applied. So currently, I couldn't actually price anything above 108 because it wouldn't know what insulation thickness to apply. So if I wanted to say, all right, well, everything else above 108 is going to be 30 mil thick, then we can just come down here to the very bottom line and then just input 30 there. So all of this will be 30 mil thick, and then all of that will be 25 mil thick. Now, like I said, these are just the standards that are in the system. So if you wanted to set this up to any sort of BS standards or anything like that, by all means, feel free to. But like I said, you will get the opportunity to amend this each time you go to use it in the system, okay? Where each time you want to use it on a particular job, sorry. So you will always get that opportunity. And then you just press exit, and then you're out of that spec and you've made all of your adjustments. Like I said, these are the pre-made ones. If you want to copy any of them, by means, feel free to. You can actually view the calculated specification if you want to get a rough idea of the pricing of something that you've constructed before you actually put it inside of a project. That's always something that you can do. So if I go on view calculated spec now, we can actually see what the pricing's actually gone up to using the 75 mil tape in comparison to using the 50 mil tape. And that's what it's showing you all up here at the top, the individual cost of each material. So there's the H&V, which corresponds to this. Then there's the tape code, which of course there, then the ID bands to there. If you prefer, you can switch it down here to view it as a unit rate breakdown, which is just gives you it more as a one-line item, which you might prefer. Okay, then what the idea is that we do with the specifications when you start a job is you'll associate those to what we call the service definitions, okay, which as you can see on screen, you're going to get the idea of what these are going to be used for. So we've got the hot water pipework on view. So the idea is we could say that the H&V taping ID is for the hot water pipework on view. And then we might have a different specification then for a different different service definition for a different specification. But once again, these is just the default list. You will get the opportunity to select all of these when you're actually in a job, and you can make new ones on that screen as well. If you want to add any in on this stage, you can either add it into any of the blank lines that you see, or just simply add it to the very bottom line, and that list will just keep on extending for you, okay? You are not limited to only 35 service definitions. You can add as many in as you would like. All right, so now that we've just gone over like where we get the prices from and how they all collate and how that's going to apply to a job, let's look at actually creating a job and sort of going from there, okay? So we're going to go onto the create job screen now. Now, this screen is your first stage out of the 6 to complete the quotation entirely on the estimating, okay? Now, this page is split up into 3 different sort of areas. You've got your job information up here along the top. You've then got your labor settings down here in the middle, and then you've got some show advanced options down here at the bottom. Now, typically with the show advanced options, that's not something I believe that you're constantly going to be needing to go in and out of. This is more so just for specific changes that you would like. So as an example, if you want to use multiple different labor rates on a job rather than a single labor rate, you know, that would be this tick box here that you could turn on and off, and that's how you can access gang labor rate and other things. If there's anything there that sort of catches your curiosity at all, just either pop the question through on the question and answer bit, or just give the support guys a call later on the support line number. But let's get back up to this then. So these are the 2 areas you want to be filling out then, your job information and your labor settings. So we'll start off with the first box, which is job code, which is 12 characters long. You can use letters or numbers. It doesn't really like spaces or symbols. However, it doesn't mind a hyphen if you do need to use some form of special character. Now, the job code numbers can actually be pre-filled for you, so they would actually just roll on chronologically. So as an example, if I wanted to use this as my job code and I created this as a job, the next time I come onto this screen, that would automatically tell me that it's then quote 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. So that's really nice and easy if you wanted to have that set up, or if you actually wanted to expand off that into even more detail, we can give you a nice drop down box just up here at the top, and you select what type of project that it is, or maybe even who is doing the project, and that will then give you the specific code that you would need for that category. So we can do it like that, or you can just manually input it in each time, depending on what's going to work best for your current workflow. right? So job code is a must, that's got to be filled in. The two things that I would also recommend that you would fill in at this stage would be the job name and the client name. So job name is pretty self-explanatory. We could just call that one Ensign Training for today, so nice and easy. And the client names, it's a quite helpful function because once you actually add a client in on your database, they'll forever then be stored for you to use them again and again. Now, if you do have multiple users using the estimating, once one of you has actually added the client in, but all of you will actually have access to that specific client in the future. So people aren't going to be having to add in the same information again and again. So to add in a client, just go to add new customer. You would fill out your details on screen. So just an example, I'll just put in Ensign. Um, you can go all the way down, fill in the address boxes, phone and fax and email if you want to go to that extent. Only the customer name, address, and postcode will actually appear on the end bill. Phone, fax, and email would only be in here for your own references if you did want to fill that in. But once you've filled out all the info that you want to, just simply press confirm, and that will then create that person then up as a client for you. And you can always go back and amend any of their information if you ever need to in the future. Right, so those are the three that I'd always recommend that you do. Now, these two functions here are optional, okay? So you've got a tender submission date and a parent code, but we'll start off with the tender submission date. So this is a very nice, simple function. If you do want to use this, all you do is you just tick the box, click on your calendar drop-down view, and then you are then able to select what date the job needs to actually be submitted. And the benefit of doing this is on the amend job screen, one, you'll actually be able to see the submission date sort of live on screen. And then the secondary function, what it will do is actually make the jobs change color. So if the job is green, you've still got plenty of time, probably somewhere around a week left before submission. If the job's changed to amber, you're probably on your last few days. And then if the job is then red, basically it's gone past the submission date. Now, all of those colors and the changeover dates can all be customized. So you don't have to work with the traffic light system if you want to. And like I said, you can change the dates to make it a little bit more suitable to your workflow. Okay, all of that is in the Tools, System Preferences, Colors tab if you ever wanted to go and adjust any of that information. But for what we're doing then, I'll just select that it needs to be submitted next Friday. Now, the parent code box, or I like to refer to it as a grouping code box, because that is effectively what it is. It allows you to have the same code on multiple different jobs, where obviously with the job codes, we have to use those singly. So the benefit of that is when you're on the amend job screen, you could look up something by the parent code and find the whole group of quotations that relate to what you're looking for. Some people do use this just for quotation code, and then they'll use the parent code as a job code if it actually goes forward and gets approved. Other people will use it for if they've copied a job and they want to apply and they need to do revisions and everything. So then they'll give the original quote and all of the revised quotations the same parent code, so they can find it all on the parent code rather than the individual job codes. If you're struggling to think of something that you could use that for, then don't worry about it. Just leave that box blank as it is. Okay. Which then brings us down to the labor settings. So we can incorporate things like the travel distance. If it is cost per mile, something you'd like to incorporate, then all you do is you just click on this little box here on the side if it's all grayed out, which will then allow you to fill in these three boxes down here at the bottom. So I'll just fill it out as an example for you. So cost per mile, just put in a base 45 pence per mile. Now, if you actually go that far out that you lodge quite often, then you can include the lodge values in here. So as an example, I'll allow for £100 a night, which will make allowances for all the lodging, food and everything else. So we'll put that in at £400 a night based off of a 4-night stay. But I don't actually lodge until we surpass maybe around 80 miles. So what that will do, if it's under 80 miles, it will do as a trip there and back for each day accumulated. If we surpass 80 miles, it will do as a trip there for the start of the week. The £400 will kick in for the rest of the week, and then you'll get one trip return home for the end of the week for the Friday, and then the week repeats itself afterwards. And basically, once you filled that in once, you can just press exit, and that will then be filled in for everybody. And then all you have to do up here is simply say how many miles away the job is, and the software will do everything else for you. For each, so obviously, as you accumulate more time, it will then make these relevant allowances for you. If you do want to make the allowance for daily additional costs, like the parking, toll booth, congestion, or even the fuel allowance of the travel distance. That's more so what this daily additional cost box down here is going to be more suitable for. Some people will just outright just zero out the travel distance box. And if you have a bit of an idea, like, oh, well, I want to make an allowance of £20 a day for fuel, then this box is going to be a lot more suitable for you to use. You can use both of them, because you could use this for literally just for the fuel cost, and then this, like I said, for like toll booth, congestion, parking, those types of expenses. Or you could just completely not do it at this stage and then just do it all at the prelims towards the end of the job. That's completely up to you on how you want to use the software. Okay. Now that gets us past that bit. Now what we're looking at is what site rate we want to use. Okay, so this is based off of single man hours, and what we can do is come in here and we can view any of the existing labour rates. Now, I only have one setup, which is standard labour rate of £10, but I can always go on the add new/amend, and I could add in as many different labour rates as I would like. Some people will have it for a multiple difference of reasons. Some people do it based off of how far away the job is, and they'll increase the rates accordingly. Some people just have like out of hours rates. Some people want pair rates. Some people want to break it all the way down to the individual apprentices that they will be allowing for the project. It's completely up to you on how you want to price your project, and there is no right or wrong way. Like I said, we can incorporate multiple different labour rates. You can use gang labour rates, or you can use single man hours. It's completely up to you on how you would like to use the software. Okay, and then if you do actually need to incorporate workshop time or anything like that, obviously you just put in the workshop rate down there at the bottom. If you don't need it, that should already be zeroed out for you. If it's not, we can zero it out in the tools section, or you can just zero it out now, but that would mean that you'd need to be doing it each time, which is suitable if you need the workshop and then sometimes you don't. That's the idea of why you can zero it out on this screen. Okay, then fundamentally, that's probably all you roughly going to want to be doing on the screen, unless you are doing a material only job or an install only job. If you were doing either of those, tick the relevant box. But if it is just a standard supply and fit project, then simply just come down here to the bottom, press continue, and that will actually create the project up for you. Okay, now you can always come back and change nearly all of that information on screen, basically, except for the job code. That's the only thing that can't be changed. But if you did need to change the job code, just simply copy the job, change the code, and you've achieved the same thing. So this is now the specification screen. So this is what I was referring to previously when I was saying how we add on the specific specs out of our default list and where we can make all of our relevant adjustments. Now, this screen, you can have this screen set up in multiple different ways to apply the specification. I believe there's about 3 screens that you can have to do this. This is my personal preferred method of doing it, but some people obviously like to do it in their specific way. So if it is a little bit different, hopefully, if you like the idea of this one, in comparison to what you guys do, just give us a call. We can make the changes, or if you want to keep using the one that you're using, then by all means do that. But how we use this one is you just come down here to the bottom and you just press copy common specification, which will then show you your list of all of the pipework specs you've got. And then you can have a separate list for all of the ductwork specs you've got, or you can view them all in one big list. So I'll keep it on pipework specs. And then what I'll do is I'll choose that H&V taping ID with our 75mm tape in, and basically now it's using those default thicknesses. So as we know, we've got 25 here, then at the bottom we have our 30mm. But say on this project, I actually need everything below 21 to be 20. Anything above 35, we'll have that one at 25. And then we'll say anything else now is 30. Okay, so that's an example of what you could do on a per project basis. If you do have multiple insulation thicknesses that need to be applied, you will just get multiple different sort of boxes which are applied with the relevant insulation product code applied up there at the top. Then simply press continue, and then it's going to want you to select a service definition. As I said before, you can either use the ones that are already existing, or you do have the add new service down there if you would like to add something to your list. When you do add it to the list, it will always be stored alphabetically as well. So if your list is starting to get quite long and you want things to go up to the top, if you use something like an underscore, something like that, it'll probably boost it up to the top if you want to. But to be honest, most of the time it's nice and easy. If you do press, it is sort of alphabetical search. So if you want to just press H, it will take you straight down to the H's. So that's nice and easy for us. So what we'll do is I'll choose cold water pipework concealed for that one. And now I'm going to click on my next line below and add in another spec for, say, heating. So I'm going to go for H&B in aluminium. Default thicknesses, 25 all the way down. Once again, I'll just throw 30 there at the end. Continue, and we'll say this is for heating pipework on view. Okay, so we'll give it a double click like that. And then what I'll also do is I'll just add in a specification for ductwork as well. So copy common spec, ductwork, and we'll go for some duct wrap and SIG. Okay, so there we are. We've gone into here. Now, ductwork is a little bit different. You sort of just apply one thickness to it. So in here, I can either go for 25, 40, or 50. Let's change it up to the 40 mil thick, and then press continue once again, and then apply a service definition. So I'll say this is for just generic ductwork. And there we go. So now I've got all the specs in that I would need. I can simply press the continue button, which will now move us onto the takeoff screen. Once again, if you want to sort of just view or check any of the prices before you get started, you can actually view the calculated specifications down here, just like what we looked at in the tools section all the way at the start of the session. All right, but if you're ready to go, simply press the continue button and that will move us forward. If you ever need to go back and add any more specs or make any adjustments, simply just press back, go back to the spec screen, change everything that you would need to. But now we're on your sort of screen where you probably find that you're spending the majority of your time, okay? So what you've got is your ability to pick your items over here in the sort of grayed out left-hand side. You have the middle bit here to help you build up your section structure for your tender return. And then over here on the right, this we call that your examine grid. It's where it's going to place, and display all of our individual line items that we've entered. So I always think that the bit that you're always going to want to start with is the middle bit, the sectional structure for the tender return document. Now, obviously, I do understand this is going to be a bit different for everybody from project to project or client to client, but I'm going to try and make a bit of a breakdown, and hopefully from that will then give you the understanding of what you can and can't do from this stage, okay? So quite commonly, you might want to break this down maybe per drawing, maybe per floor, you know, a couple of different ways are sort of along that line. So as an example, I'll just go for drawing numbers, okay? Or we can do floors and drawing numbers. Do you see it doesn't really matter too much? So, but we'll just say drawing 1 for today, okay? And then what I might want to do is then split up drawing 1 into the relevant different sort of services or however you would like to organize it realistically. So what I'm going to do is just come down here to go B and plus, and I'm just going to keep it nice and simple and just say pipe work. And then I can add in one more B. So I'm going to leave B highlighted as it is and just hit the plus again. I'm just going to add in one there for ductwork. Then the idea is then if I then want to make the same thing up for drawing 2, I can just go back to A, hit plus, and then write in drawing 2, and then repeat the process again and again until I've made every breakdown that I would need to. Now, I'm hoping that the majority of the time it is just down to A and B levels that you will need to be using. However, we do have C level sections and even D level sections if you ever do need to break everything down to that much level of detail. Whether you'll be doing this for your own benefit or for your client's benefit is completely up to you, because you can say, for example, your client only wants to know the total cost of each drawing. You could then do the various subsections just to help you organize it and build the quotation up. But then when it actually comes to producing the quote, you can then say to only display the A level sections, not with the B level breakdown. So you can always sort of do this for your own benefit, okay? Now, when it comes around to deleting the sections, if you've made anything more that you didn't mean to, it's dead easy. All you have to do is click on it, right click and press delete, or you can use your minus symbol down there at the bottom. But there is a bit of a safety feature that you can't delete a folder, okay? So that's just instantly grayed out. To remove the folder, you would have to remove both of the sections, and once the last section has been removed, the main folder itself would then disappear, okay? Now, just to make our lives a little bit easier and quicker, when it actually comes around to building up your sections, okay? So drawing 1, now I've got drawing 2 and maybe even a drawing 3, all with the same breakdown of pipework and ductwork, but I just don't want to type pipework and ductwork out 3 times, right? So what I'm going to do instead is just right-click drawing 1 and then press the option of duplicate, which will create me an identical copy of drawing 1, and then all I have to do is rename the folder to be called drawing 2, which is definitely going to be a faster way than having to create everything from scratch each time. So I'll do that once more. So just right click and the options duplicate, and then just left click copied section a good couple of times, and then you will be able to rename it to whatever you need it to be. Now, this is something that I always do. you might do this, you might not. So the sections are quite often either either collapsed or expanded, as we refer to it, or open and closed, if that's an easier way of thinking of it. But one thing I always do is I right click here and I always press this option of keep globally expanded, so everything's always open. I just prefer being able to see everything at once. Some people might prefer it all being folded up, so then they're only looking at literally the maybe the drawing that they're tackling at that moment in time. But that's a personal preference for you all. Okay. Just a little thing as well. If you then if you ever put a section in the wrong order or you place it in the wrong area or anything like that, it's all drag and drop. Okay, so if I decide, oh, I want this a bit more alphabetical and I want ductwork above pipework, I can just grab ductwork each time and drag it above pipework. Same thing, even if you needed to move your drawing folders around, all of that's all drag and drop as well, so you can move that to wherever you would need it to. And it's as easy as that. You can also save these as templates for future projects if that's going to be something that's going to be helpful for you all as well. Okay, now there's two ways that you can use the estimating system when it comes around to it. You can either use it with conjunction of the PDF takeoff, or you can just use it by itself on the estimating software. If you were just using, if you did just want to price the job completely by itself on the estimating, because you've done the drawing manually or you've been given a list of quantities or anything like that, that is then where you just want to come over here on the left-hand side, select where it is what it is you want to be inputting, and then choose what you need. So you've got all your steel fittings here, then all your copper fittings, then all your duct fittings. Okay, so we're going to click on the steel pipe work, and it's then going to ask me what spec I want to use. Now I could say, all of this, what we're about to do is for the cold water specification. So I'm going to double click cold water, and now it's showing me all my relevant different pipe sizes for steel pipe sizes. And all I have to do is input how many meters of each pipe size do we need. So I might need 20.5 meters of 10 mil, 50 meters of this, 10 meters of that, and so on and so forth. And then just press the confirm button, and that will place it live on screen. Now, what you can do to make sure that you have placed it in the correct specification is just look over here on the left, over here on the right, and you'll see definition, so as in service definition, and then specification numbers is in spec 1. Now, if you look up here at the top, I can see that that is spec 1, service definition 8, and I can clearly see what that is all for, which is perfect. All right, so I know that's done the correct thing. So now every item I go to put in, now even if I click back on pipework, it's going to automatically assume that I'm going to be inputting it into specification 1. Okay, which is probably right now, considering I want to now input the bends, and it's only showing me the relevant sizes of what I've input for the pipework. So which is nice and helpful, especially if you have just got random sizes throughout that list. You can display all the other sizes if you need it, just with this tick box down here, but just there we are. I'll just fill in some figures for us live on the screen. There we go. Now, if I then want to change specification of what I'm doing, we can then come down here to the bottom, and it's probably the easiest way to do it is probably just to click on spec. Okay, so spec, and that then shows us the three that we're using. Now I want to do the heating pipe work now. And you see how that's now changed up here to now use specification 2, use service definition 1, instead of 1 and 8 as it did previously. So now I can click on, say, my copper pipe. Oh, it just wants me to specify again. I think that's because I've now clicked on copper pipe rather than steel pipe. And once again, I then just input my meterage in exactly the same as it was on the steel. But now the difference is, as we'll be able to see on screen, the different specs and service definitions applied there. So it's the same thing when it comes around to ductwork. Click on ductwork. As soon as you click here, it instantly knows you want something else. So go for duct wrap. And then I can then input my relevant sizes. So I might have 500 by 500, might have 15 meters of that. So I could just instantly then go down to the next box and then start inputting the other sizes. So I might have now 500 by 300, and there's 10 meters of that. And we can all press confirm. And once again, just builds it all up on screen. We can see the width, depth, quant, definition, and spec. Now, something I didn't mention, if you have got something wrong, you input the wrong size, you give it the wrong quantity, you can just add live on. Okay, so that's something you can do. So if that's in at 10 mil, oh, that was meant to be 15 as well, I could just change that to 15 like so, and that will just update it live on your screen. Same thing with your quantity, or if you go, oh, well, actually that was meant to be, that part there is also going to be part of spec 1 and definition 1 and spec 2, then I can just change that once again live on screen like so. All right, so it's really quite flexible and adjustable. And as we can see, it slowly starts to build everything up. All right. Now, if you do need to add in any other things like your muff covers and all of that, you have got those options there for yourself. So just give them a click. It will then ask you once again what spec you're doing it for, and then what jackets basically it is that you would need. So then you can specify which one, and then you can actually say what are you fitting that to. You can give your number of pipe, you can give your various thicknesses on the pipe sizes, and then how many of those that you need. So I can say, oh well, there's these are all in at 15 mil, and there is 6 of them, and they're all cast iron gates. Or we might say change it and say that they're butterfly valves, and then just press confirm, exit, and then that's how that logs there on the screen for you. Okay, so that's really nice and easy again. If you do need to add in any other sort of specialized quotations for anything else, like trace heating or anything along those lines, then you have got your specials button down here at the bottom. Give that a press, and you can see here we've got insulation, special paint finishes. We can change to subcontract for asbestos removal, trace heating, scaffolding. You can then make just allowances for labor only if you need to do any removals or anything along the lines of that. Or if you do actually have any area onlys, you've actually got some free entries, so you can just enter that yourself. Or you can actually go into the calculation formula if you need to allow for things like specific tanks. So you can say specific rectangular, circular, how are the ends on that? You can input all the details on what you would like it to be displayed as over here on the right-hand side. So you've got all those options there available to you. Okay, but if you were wanting to use the system with the PDF takeoff, then okay, so let's just minimize this system for a second, and I'll open up our PDF takeoff. Here we are. So what we're going to do is just going to get a drawing up on screen, sort of go through from there. Now I am on the cloud version of the software. Okay, so this is where you're going to start to have a little bit of a difference if you have it locally installed. Right. So when I press open, this is going to then open me up into my cloud storage area. Okay, so not my actual personal machine. Now, if I need to access specific drawings that are on my desktop, what I've got to do is minimize myself from the cloud, find my drawing. So I've already got mine here on my desktop already. And what we can do then is simply just copy that, click back onto the cloud, and then I can then go inside my documents folder and I can just paste it in here if that's where I would like that to go. And that's now uploaded that onto the cloud. We can do other things on the cloud, like put on your specific drives and stuff like that. If you do want access to those sort of things to make your life a bit easier, just give the support guys a call. They'll walk you through it. If you've got this locally installed, when you pressed open, you'll just be naturally looking through your normal file explorer anyway. So you'll always be able to find your specific drawings. So I'm just going to go into training PDF, and I'm just going to use this mechanical drawing that I've got, which is just a very basic sort of heating drawing, which will give us the basic principles of what it is that we need to be doing. Okay. Right, so just going to dive straight into it and sort of cover more so how you'll be using the system in comparison to what all the buttons do. Okay, so first thing we want to be doing after loading up the drawing is setting and checking the scale, basically. So up here it tells us what the drawing size is. It does say it is an A1 drawing, so let's go see what it says on the legend. And down here it says it is a 1 to 100 at A1. So the fact of the paper size match is a good indication so far if the scale will be correct. So we're going to change it to 1 to 100 in the drop down menu. But basically, you always want to check it. So you always want to find something that you have a known measurement of, whether that would be a scale bar, ductwork, ceiling grid, doorway, kitchen countertop, or any other standard measurements that you would know. I'm, however, just going to use one of these sort of standard doorways. Okay, so now I'm just going to zoom in, and to do so, all I'm doing is I've got my mouse where I want to zoom in. I roll the wheel a small amount, so just a few clicks, which then zooms me into that area. So what I actually did there was zoom in a little bit too much, because your mouse is constantly your center point. So keep your mouse where you want to zoom, and you'll be able to always zoom into it. If you don't, and you just roll the wheel, you'll probably find that you just end up always sort of go left, 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 and left, basically, right? So just get yourself into a nice position. We can use any of these doorways realistically. We'll use this one. So I want my ruler tool. So the ruler tool is a nice, easily distinguishable one. It's one that looks like the ruler, and if you hover over it, it says measure distance. So just give that a left click, and then you should find that your mouse is now this sort of black crosshair icon, and the ruler is now highlighted up there at the top to show you are using this function. So then just measure your known distance by left clicking at one side, left clicking to the other, and that's now giving me the distance of about 850 mil, which I know is about right for a doorway. As long as it's not extremely wrong, then you know that you are going to be correct. Okay, so that's how you can check it. If it was wrong, there's multiple different ways that we can then try get it to be the correct scale, like creating your own custom scale, for example, off of something like a doorway, which you know the measurement of. Right, so now then, we just need to find where on the drawing we particularly want to sort of start from. And there is no right or wrong in this particular scenario of what it is that you want to be doing, okay? You just find where you want to sort of go from. So if we wanted to say, oh, well, I just go from the furthest left-hand side of the drawing, work my way to the bottom right, then do it that way. If you want to come in from where the dropper's sort of coming in from, then do it that. Like I said, that's how you want to do your takeoff. That's got nothing to do with the system. So to get yourself into the position of where you want to start from, and then over here on the left-hand side, just before you start doing your measurements, you want to select what color takeoff lines you want to be using, just as a visual reference for yourself. But more importantly, in this service box underneath here, you want to say what it is that you are doing. Okay, so I already know this is my drawing one, as I've got it labeled as. And I'm going to say this is for then the hot water. Okay, so I'll just put that in there. And then what you can then do is then specify what size you need. So I need 32 mil. Now, this is completely up to you. This is all my steel up here. If I need to change this to copper or to ductwork, you just press the A and B button. So there's my copper, there's my ductwork. The A and B button is duplicated on the top row, but it is just that, it is only duplicated. So when it comes around to actually doing the pipe work, straight away, I need a riser. All right, so I want to use the vertical pipe work, which is always going to be your riser button. Okay, so I'm going to give that a click. And then I can include additional fittings such as T, bends, and caps. I can do one or two or all three of them. It doesn't particularly matter. And my default length, my riser is going to be 3 meters. I can change that if I need to. And I can change the default value up there in the preferences as well. But I'm just going to say, allow me a bend and a T, and press confirm. But just before I go to do the takeoff, I notice it's all flow and return. So I'll just tick my flow and return tick box there. You can have a different return size to your flow as well, but in this instance, it's all one and the same, so I'm okay. So then all I need to do is just come over here and do one left click, which is actually going to then put the symbol live on screen for me and tell me what part number that's all from. Now, if you find that part numbers are getting in your way a little bit, as it sort of causes quite a bit of a build-up, then just quickly undo what you've done, come up here to your preferences tab, and then within preferences, you can turn on part numbers. Basically, we'll turn them on and off. So I'm going to turn part numbers off, and I'm also actually going to turn my show arrows on lines off as well, because I personally think that builds up the screen even more. So now I'm just going to have solid colored lines rather than colored lines with little arrowheads at the end, basically. This is also where you can also turn on functions like your autosave, which we do highly recommend that you do. Right, but there we are. We'll just press exit and let's try that again. So riser, I want to include a bend and a T, 3 meters is fine, 32, flow and return, confirm, one left click. There we are. Now, I much prefer that. It's less build up on the screen because that's my 6 different items it's made the allowance for just down here at the bottom. If you find your symbols or your lines aren't big enough, you can change the thicknesses of your different lines up here along the top if that's something that you would need to do. But do bear in mind, just like the part numbers, it won't change any of your existing takeoff lines, only the new takeoff lines going forward, okay? So now when it comes around to choosing what pipe work I want to do, that's down to how you want to estimate. So you've got 4 different ways that you can do your takeoff. You can just use the generic straight pipe work that will only measure the pipe work. You can use this straight with bends that automatically detects when you do a change in direction and will allow your 90 and 45-degree bends for you. You then have this one will actually do the exact same as what I've just described, but it will also actually allow your flanges for you based off of these preferences over here at the side. So you have 6 normal and 3 on Victolic. And then you also have this option here as well, which is going to do straight with bends and allow the flange on the straight. And for every time you do a change in direction, it will also allow the flanges for you on the bends as well. So you pick which one's relevant to you. So what I'm going to just go for is just the straight with bends, the nice, easy one. So I'm just going to select that. And then I'm going to left click where I'm starting from, left click into the bend, and then left click up to that sort of T-junction there. And now that I've sort of finished with that 32 mil run, I'm going to use my right click to say I'm done, okay? So the right click says I'm finished. And if I just use these blue arrows that expand my grid, we can see all of my takeoff lines that I've just done there. So I'm going to send the grid back down. Now, it's up to you whether you do allow your fittings entirely or whether you want to do them now or you want to do them later. Once again, completely down to how you want to estimate. But I can quickly just do the T now and quickly just put that in. Now what that has done is it has actually turned the flow and return function off. And we need the same option here as what the mechanical gets, so we wouldn't have to do 2 ticks. So that will hopefully be in future development. But just do bear in mind then that you would need to do 2 clicks. Okay, so there's 1 T for the flow, 1 T for the return. So then I'm going to right click that. I'm going to go back with straight with bends. I'm now going to go over to the left. So I'm going to change my pipe size here to 20, and then left click, right click. Once again, if I want to shut the T down now, T, click, click, done. Change my pipe size down to 15, straight with bends, left, 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 right. That's the idea, okay? Now, this bit is actually something that's going to be hopefully a little bit more helpful for you, okay? So I'm going to left click here. Now, I need to carry on further down the run, but I don't want to use these bars over here on the side. So what I'm going to do is push and hold my mouse wheel down. So I'm not going to roll it. I'm just going to push it down and then drag my mouse up towards my monitor, and that nicely moves the screen for me. So then all I have to do now is left click in this corner, then grab and hold the mouse wheel, drag it over again, and then left click at the end of the run, and then once again finalize that with a right click. So that mouse wheel just allows you to move around the drawing freely without accidentally doing counts, okay? So just going to do this little branch here as well. Left click, left click, left click, right click. Once again, I can go around, I can allow for my various T's, valves, and everything else I would need to do. One slight recommendation for you all, if this will help you out in any way, a lot of people do this. They'll do the main pipework run in one specific color because they know they can also easily detect where bends have been added. But then when it comes around to counting up their additional fittings, what they'll do is they'll actually change color over here. So change that down to green, but then they'll just still put in hot water service, just so that it's easily distinguishable when you're moving around to go, right, that is where I have my green mark. I have allowed my T there. So it's just visually easier to do these checks yourself, okay? So that's how you do all of your pipe works. That's how you do your linears, and that's how you do your counts. It will be the same thing with your ductwork, realistically. You would just change it over to your ductwork. You'd say, I want to either do the sort of rectangular, spiral, or flat oval. And then you would just fill in your relevant sizes down here at the bottom, and then do the exact same thing as what we've done there on the pipe work. So that's really nice and straightforward for you. Now, to move this information across from the PDF into the estimating, then all you have to do is have both softwares open, and you need to be in the takeoff screen of the particular job you want it to go into, okay? So let's go back to your PDF because that's all correct. Just press your export to estimating button, which is either this one here, or once again, this one is actually duplicated on the top row as well. Press either one, and it should always come up then with your job's information. If it doesn't, if it comes up with a different job, please make sure you're in the right job. If you are, just give Ensign a call. We can get it sorted. Now, to make sure you've done this properly, if that is the right job, just press confirm. And as soon as you do it, all these should then become ticked to tell you it has successfully sent it all, which it has. So that means now I can easily flick back to the PDF takeoff and just press this big import PDF button, which will then allow me to then choose my spec. We can view, to pick what we've done on the PDF takeoff and then associate a spec to this. So I know that that was all hot water service based off of our service description. So let's click here. I can then go for my heating. I can then press confirm, and then I can say, let's all say this was all for drawing 2. So then I can go in drawing 2, pipe work, import. And that has now inputted all of what we've done into drawing 2 pipework. And we can see all of my information there, all of my sizes all nicely organized, and all of my quantities nicely collated. And then the idea is you'd go back to your PDF, make sure you save your existing drawing with like your initials at the end, or Ensign or takeoff, anything along the line, so you easily know that you have actually done this one and you're not overwriting your original. And then press save, and then you'd open your next drawing and carry on the process again and again and again until you finalized all of your drawings and got everything inputted into here. Now, what I'm just going to do for a little bit of quickness is I'm just going to pad out our quotation a little bit and swap a few things around. If you've read everything in the wrong specification, because it is easily done, don't panic. You can quickly change everything if you actually want to highlight everything, and then you can right click it, and you can actually go change by range, and you can actually change your service definition as well as your specification. So I can change that down to service 8 and then specification 1, which is the other spec and system we were using. Press confirm, and that's now changed everything live on my screen for me. So it's really easy to change things in bulk if you need to, rather than changing it in one line, rather than on the individual lines. It's fine to do a couple that way, but when you've got hundreds of lines, you're not going to want to change those individually. So let me just pad out the ductwork a little bit again, and then we can move it on to the next stage and actually start to calculate everything through. So there we are. I've completed my job now. All right, so what we're going to do now is just continue this forward. So I'm going to press continue. If the system detects any problems, it will tell us whilst it's doing this stage, okay? So tell us if we've missed any sections, if any materials weren't being successfully priced, but if it moves through smoothly like that, that means that there was no issues with the job at all, which is the ideal thing. Right, just going to take you back to takeoff again and just press continue once more just to show you this particular prompt. Okay, so this is the recalculate prompt. So there is a disconnect between the takeoff screen and the summary table, and that's this screen here. This basically goes, should I be rereading the takeoff page to one, see if you've added any more items or changed anything or swapped the specs or updated your material cost, or do you want to keep it as it was originally calculated? So this is perfect if you are going back to a project that you quoted, say, last year, and they've agreed that you've won it, but you can reprice it with today's prices. Wonderful, you can reprice a job you did last year in seconds. But what you do want to be careful of is if you're just coming back in to view something, because maybe you just want to print something out from the summary table, make sure that you do press no to this question because you will not want your quote to change. If you do, however, press the wrong option and you do press yes when you didn't mean to, ring us up straight away. We can always revert you back to your previous calculation stage. The sooner you let us know, the easier that will be to do for you, okay? So I'm just going to press no and press continue. Now, this is the summary table where you can do all of your various different markup percentages. Now, everybody does this a little bit different, okay? So once again, this is one of those instances of where there is no right or wrong way to do it. So what I'm going to do is just give us a sort of walkthrough of what's up here on the screen, and then we'll go from there, okay? So down here at the bottom, it's worked out the certain amount of hours, work that back to us in days, which you can change. Believe mine is currently on 8-hour working days. But if you want it somewhere like 7, 7.5, 9, or 10, we can make those changes for you. All right, and that's actually worked out what our labor rate is based off of the £10 per hour, which has given us this amount up here. And then the system's also collated all of our material costs to build that up for us as well. Now that all totals up to here at the end, which then works its way down to finally your gross contract cost. So I'm just going to give you 2 examples of how markup can be done. My 2 examples are going to be marking up the materials and labor differently, and then the other one is just marking up everything as a whole. So if you want 20% on materials and 30% on labor, for example, you will want to use this on-cost percentage up here along the top. So I can go 20% on materials and then 30% there on labor. So this was our cost. This is how much we've now applied and allowed for markup, and this is now what we're trying to sell it out at. You can see your individual breakdowns up there along the top. And that would then typically mean that you don't need to worry about using the overhead or the profit box. If you prefer to just mark everything up as a whole, take those percentages out, and then you can come down here and use the overhead and profit box. You might say 10% allowance for company overheads and then 15% on profit. So that's then took that as a cost, worked out 10%, add those two together, then it's took 15%, which is this value, and then it adds it all together to create you your net contract cost. If you do need to allow your builder's discount, MCDs, traditionally we still do it as a fraction, so 1/39th. If you would like it to be as a percentage, we can get that box changed for you, but please do remember it's not 2.5% that you'd need to do the increase by, because adding on 2.5 and taking away 2.5, you are not back to the same figure, okay? So please do be aware if you do opt in to get it changed to a percentage box. Which then just leaves you with the last 2 things that you need to add on, which is one is your preliminaries and the other is prime cost and provisional sums. Now, both of these are done from up here along the top. So you've got your prime costs here. We can do your primes and provisional sums. Simply overtype the title, drop your amounts in over here on the right. You can actually apply individual markup percentages to the primes and provisionals if you would like to, because they will not be affected by any of the overheads and profit boxes. Same thing with the preliminaries, but we actually give you 3 different ways that you can input it. You can do it as lump sum amounts or fixed costs, as we refer to it. You can do it as a percentage uplift of a figure, or you can do it as a weekly rate of time-related cost. So how much is it a week and how many weeks do you need it? Now, you can utilize all 3 of them on a singular job, or you can just use 1 or 2 of them. It doesn't necessarily matter. And all of these descriptions are completely customizable. So literally just overtype them. You will only be doing it for this project if you do it. If you want to make some permanent adjustments, just click prelim descriptions up here along the top. and then you can do any of those adjustments there. Now, just something I did forget to mention, we allowed some daily additional costs up at the start of the job. Okay, so what it's actually done is worked out the daily additional cost for us up there, so £1,476.80. It's then done £10 times 590.69, plus that's basically just shy of 1,500. And that's actually how it's created your site labor cost. Just in case you thought 506 times 10 is not £7,000, that would be why. Okay. Now, with prelims as well, last thing on that one, they can either be shown to the client or they can be hidden from the client, or we call it spread across all of your rates, which is just dictated by this little box down here, which is naturally going to spread it across both your labor and materials, but you can be a bit more specific if you wanted to, or you can say, no, just show the client my prelims by unticking that box, okay? Now, once you actually do that, that finally gets you to the gross contract cost, okay, which then leaves us with the final thing of producing the printouts of the software. Now, printouts, we've segregated and split them into two different areas, okay? We call one reports and we call the other one bills, just for easy association, basically. So we can say things like reports are for you and the bills are for the clients, okay? So select reports here. All of this internal documentation in here is for you, okay? So this, everything in here is entirely for you. Primarily, it's mostly cost, or it's cost showing you how you get up to sell. So let me just show you an example of what you could generate. I'm just going to do material summary unpriced, okay? So this is the perfect thing if you actually want to build up the quote that you've done and then actually send this quote off to any of your wholesalers to actually get a quotation. This is the type of thing that you want to be generating. So I'm just going to zoom in for us all so we can use a little magnifying glasses up here at the top, and I'll zoom in. So we can see here, there is our relevant different tapes. That's how many square meter or meters we've used. And that's actually telling you how many you would need. So on that one, I'd actually need 51 rolls. I'd need 7 rolls of 50 mil and 10 rolls of 10 mil. And that's, sorry, of 75 mil, apologies. And you can see as that just works all the way down. So that's how it utilizes the purchase quantities that we initially looked at in the tools section. Now, there is a lot of detail in there for you. So if there's any information that you ever want to know about a singular project, just ask us and we can guide you on what report is going to be the best one for you to look at. You can also set them up as favorites as well, so you don't need to remember which reports it is that you would need. Right, so now let's push this forward to the actual end of the quotation, where we can actually start to look at what we refer to as bills, but it's effectively the tender summary and the schedule of rates, okay? So we've moved this forward now, and this is split up into 4 primary areas, okay? So what you've got is multiple different summary options over here. You've then got optional client documentation where you can set up the draft version in the software, and then we would be able to just amend the draft for this particular project, say for the cover letter, and make any alterations to that. And then over here on the right is your schedule of rates and the multiple different ways that can be displayed. All of the print letterhead and these options down here, this is more aesthetic features and other additional information you'd like to be shown, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to generate a couple of the popular things. So I'm just going to go for a tender summary as well as a service definition merged summary as well as just a standard quantified schedule of rates, just to give you an idea of what we can create, because I know we are sort of running out of time now. So I'm going to go preview and export. So what we're looking at here then is the first one, which should be the tender summary, I do believe. No, apologies, it's the service definition. Right, so here, let me zoom in again for us all. So we can see here, I've then got drawing 1, and within drawing 1, I've got cold water, ductwork, heating, and my muff covers, and I have my individual values for each. And then we can then see the same there on drawing 2, and then across the same thing on drawing 3. So I'm not sure whether this would be a more sort of suitable style of report for you, or whether you would sort of prefer it to just be a little bit more generic and just say sort of like what I created of just drawing pipework price, drawing ductwork price, because that's effectively then what a tender summary would give you. So this one doesn't reference any of the service definitions nor the specifications that you've used on the job. Okay, so this is just entirely just the service, the section breakdown that you have given it. And then finally here, this is the full quantified schedule of rates, which you can have show with labor material splits, with your section breakdowns, without your section breakdowns, completely up to you. Once again, let me just zoom in to give you that little bit of detail. So what we've got here is drawing 1 and then ductwork, and then what spec I've used. Then it shows me for the ductwork of actually what allowances I've done. And then we've got then the subtotal of what the ductwork is. And then we've got drawing 1 pipe work. and then it's showing us the butterfly valves, and then what specification we've got in for the H&V with the heating, and then we've got the H&V with cold water, and that's just going to go on. Now, this one does actually roll on to the next couple of pages, so you can use these little arrows up here at the top to turn the page. And as you can see, it nicely breaks it down. So you get what item it is, what size and thickness, so what size pipe work and what thickness is it using, your quantity per item or per meter, depending obviously what it is, if it's an elbow or if it's pipe, and then your rate, so that is a supply and fit cost per meter or per item once again, and then your total costs of each line, then followed up with a subtotal, and then finally at the end you will then get your final grand total of the project. Now, for any of the reports or bills that appear in the software, if you want to get this saved onto your actual computer, down here at the bottom, you have your relevant file formats that you can change to. So basically PDF, Word, and Excel. Pick your preferred file type, press Export Report, which is basically your save button, which is then going to automatically want to save in on the cloud. Now, we have made you nice little reports area where it will actually already make you folders based off of the project name that you've given it, your job name. So here I've got my Ensign training. I can save it directly in there. And I'm going to do that because it instantly then pops back up for me. So now I can just use the simple copy and paste routine to move it from the cloud back onto my personal computer. And now I can do whatever I need to do with this, either upload it to the server, chop it up and write it up onto the client's reports, or just send it off obviously directly to them. Once again, however you need to actually be doing your quotes. So that's how you move any of the information off from the cloud back to your personal machines. Obviously, if you're on the local version, you just save it to wherever you would need that to go, basically. And then you would hopefully you'd send that off and win the job, basically. Right, so that is the sort of basic guided walkthrough of how to sort of get the basics of both the estimating and the PDF takeoff, and how you can use them all together to get from start to finish. So now let me just sort of just shut this down for a second. And obviously, if you guys have any sort of questions that you wanted to pop through, that I don't think there's anything been logged in yet, but obviously if you have any through, you can just pop them in now, or feel free to disconnect and carry on with your day.